The wins keep coming, Patriots. The wins keep coming. The wins keep coming. We got another one. That Georgia case with Fani Willis, who was sleeping with her prosecuting attorney, her RICO specialist, who had never prosecuted a RICO case, Nathan Hot Dog Wade, as my man Greg Foreman, Black Conservative Perspective, would say. Now, this entire case has been dismissed, thrown out. And in this video, I'm going to let you hear and see exactly what's going on. And this has been a horrible month. This might be the worst month that the Democrat Party has probably ever had. And if they ever had a month like this, it happened before I was born over 47 years ago, because they keep taking L after L. Every single thing that they propagandized that they were going to get Trump on have failed miserably. Why? Because it came from a negative place of lawfare and retribution and hatred. And that's why it's falling apart. So as you see right here, Georgia prosecutor kills the historic election interference case against Trump and allies. And I'm going to get into these clips of Fani Willis and what the White House has to say. I'm going to read just a little bit of this. A Georgia prosecutor on Wednesday officially dropped the historic racketeering case against President Donald Trump and others for attempting, allegedly, to overturn the 2020 presidential election, closing the chapter in a legal effort once seen as a grave threat to Trump's political future. The move means that Trump has dodged criminal legal jeopardy for his attempts to overturn his 2020 election loss to President Joe Biden. The federal cases against Trump from special counsel Jack Smith on election interference leading up to the January 6th, 2021 U.S. Capitol riot and on mishandling classified documents case was previously dropped. Given the complexity of the legal issues at hand, ranging from constitutional questions and the supremacy clause to immunity, jurisdiction, venue, speedy trial concerns, and access to federal records, and even assuming each of these issues were resolved in the state's favor, bringing this case before a jury in 2029, 2030, or even 2031 would be nothing short of a remarkable feat. Peter Skandalakis, the prosecutor on the case, wrote Wednesday, you know what it really means, what they're saying right there? It was a bullcrap case. It never should have been brought. And he wrote a 20-page explanation on why he decided not to prosecute it. And I chose CNN on purpose as the reference source. You know, everybody's writing about it. I chose them. The reason why I chose these left-wing outlets for some of these clips and for this is that you know it is bad when they can't even spin it. Now, I noticed how they put that one line in there where it said, Trump dodged criminal legal jeopardy for his attempts to overturn his 2020 election loss. And let me explain something that y'all already know. Every single politician has a right to challenge or contest the results of an election. Remember, Al Gore did it in 2000. Matter of fact, every single time the Democrats lose, guess what they do? Say it was stolen. Hillary Clinton, right after she lost, she was saying that, Trump, they called Trump illegitimate. Everybody was saying that it was illegitimate and Russia helped him win and yada, yada, yada. But when anybody would even remotely whisper that the 2020 was shady, when we saw people pulling suitcases out from under tables.
This table, the black one, was placed there by the lady with the blonde braids at about 8:22 a.m. in the morning. So she put that table there. So the same person who's staying behind now, the same person who cleared the place out under the pretense that we're going to stop counting, is the person who put the table there at 8:22 in the morning. Yeah, I saw 4 suitcases come out from underneath the table. Yeah, upper right hand, you see the gentleman in the red. So he just pulled one out. So what are these ballots doing there, separate from all the other ballots? And why are they only counting them whenever the place is cleared out with no witnesses? Is the question. So these machines can process about 3,000 ballots an hour. You have multiple machines there, and they're there for 2 hours. So you do the math. How many ballots went through those machines in those 2 hours when there was no one there to supervise, to be present, consistent with your statutes and rules, to supervise the tabulation? We believe
Drop boxes was being overloaded on video. Joe Biden jumps up hundreds of thousands of votes between 4 a.m. and like 7 a.m., which is completely irregular, to take the lead and ultimately win. If we question that based off what we saw, oh, you're an election denier, and that's a bad thing. These folks are hypocrites. Now, I want to play, matter of fact, before I get into this clip, I want you to remember something. This is Fani Willis. Remember when she said this?
Because they deserve a DA that won't have sex with his employees. Because they deserve a DA that won't put money in their own pocket when it should go to benefit children. Because we deserve better.
Now, this is that same DA who allegedly had a whistleblower within their team that exposed the fact that federal grants that came in there that was supposed to open up this place for a rec center for young boys. No, they bought swag with it and laptop computers and end up firing the lady. Oh, no. And then you heard the part she said about not wanting to sleep with the employees. When this whole thing was started, the debacle going downhill in a case that should have never been brought anyway, she decided that she was going to bring her boyfriend onto the case, lie about it. If you're enjoying this video, do me a solid, hit that thumbs up, because I will never ask you for a cash app, a super chat, or a donation. You hitting that like button is more than enough. And if you aren't subscribed to the channel, subscribe and make sure that you hit the notification bell and select all. YouTube has issues with notifications, but when you select all, YouTube will make sure that you get notified when I upload new videos. Pay him $1 million for a RICO prosecution that he had never done. She passed over much more experienced RICO prosecutors within that county to go with Nathan Wade. Paid him $1 million and was traveling all of these exotic places and living it up. But she won't put the money in her pocket, and she won't sleep with the employees like the previous person did. She reneged on both of those. Now, remember this too. After she had been exposed and they was dismissing the case, she did what all Democrats, especially a black Democrat woman, does. And after this one, we're going to get into the explosion where you're going to hear and watch these Democrats cope on television in real time. But remember this, listen to this.
Lord, now I want to be clear. All three of these special counselors are superstars. But I'm just asking God, is it that some will never see a black man as qualified, no matter his achievements? What more can one achieve? The other two have never been judges, but no one questions their credentials. I'm just saying.
Now she's in the house of God, saying, Lord, acting like she's making a prayer, like God is going to give a crap about her talking, using her racist propaganda. And the fact that these folks let that woman get on the pulpit and spew her propaganda is shame on them. Now let's get into the real deal. Check out this story about this case, which never should have been brought, and how it fell apart. Check this out.
Georgia, we're getting more information. The state judge involved in this case, Scott McAfee, has now granted a prosecutor's request to drop that 2020 Georgia election interference case, meaning it is now dismissed. President Trump and key allies face charges after a phone call of President Trump pressuring Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to turn the election in Trump's favor. Once that came to light, it kicked off the investigation, ultimately led to this big RICO case. Joining us now is MS Now senior legal reporter Lisa Rubin.
And he never said, flip this election. That never happened. And that's why I chose BS Now, which is formerly MSDNC. I chose them on purpose because watching them cope and try to spin it is enjoyable just for a minute. And then we're going to get to the better clips. But that's why I chose this left-wing outlet, so we can see and hear them cope with their TDS, and they keep getting their butts whooped. Check this out.
You obviously covered this case extensively. Here we are. It's over.
It is. And, I will tell you, Anna, that off the record, people involved in this case predicted that this was exactly the end that this case would meet. I was doubtful of that. But I think given all of the time that has elapsed between the active prosecution in the case, the fact that President Trump has been restored to the presidency, his efforts to pardon people involved in the core events at the heart of this case, despite the fact that he's not authorized to issue state pardons, all of those factors sort of led folks to believe that the day that we have now reached would come. Of course, we now have a 20-plus page explanation from Peter Skandalakis, who was the head of that prosecutor's council that was tasked with finding another prosecutor to take over this case in the wake of Fani Willis's disqualification. You'll remember Mr. Skandalakis assigned that role to himself and now has undertaken to explain to folks in a 20-page analysis why it is that he is making this decision.
Have you had a chance?
It's because he couldn't find anybody that was willing to take that case on when they looked at it. Even him himself looked at that and said, oh, my God. Number one, it should have never been brought at the state level. It's a federal case. This case should have never been brought at all. Again, it is perfectly legal and he is well within his rights to contest, challenge, or try to find additional votes if they're available. In every election, every team does it. But since it's Donald Trump, they wanted to flip the script. While we celebrate another victory for America and for President Trump, I want to take time to give a shout out to the sponsor of this video and partner of the channel, Chapter. Right now is open enrollment for healthcare. And with all of the talks about the ACA subsidies getting ready to run out, you got illegal immigrants on the Medicaid system. Our seniors need to make sure that they have the best Medicare plans available on the market. And at Chapter, one of their highly skilled professional agents will make sure they go over what you have. And if what you have is the best, awesome. But if not, they'll make sure you have the best Medicare plan that's available on the market. The phone call is fast, less than 20 minutes. It's absolutely free. And Chapter has been helping save seniors as much as $1,100 a year on their Medicare plan, because it would suck to find out that your prescription is no longer covered and your doctor is no longer in network. So don't take the risk. Make the phone call, protect yourself, and make sure you got the best Medicare plan. You can call that number right on the screen, or you can visit the website at askchapter.org/real politics. Whichever way you choose, just make sure that you choose and let Chapter make sure that you got the best Medicare plan available today. And act like it was something oh so new, it's never been done again, while they're now running around talking about how the midterms are rigged and we ain't even got there yet. The same people that said, oh, if you deny elections, you're anti-America, blah, blah, blah. They're already setting the stage for when they lose in the midterms, which will only be the fourth time in U.S. history that the person that won the presidency maintains the House and the Senate after, when the first midterm elections come up. It's only happened 3 times before, and that's for Republicans and Democrats. This will be the 4th, and they're setting the stage for it.
Chance to look at what his explanation is yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is that in the interest of justice, he is saying, given the time that has elapsed and to promote finality, he thinks that this is the right recourse here. And with respect to finality, let me underscore what I think he means by that. Donald Trump is in office again. He cannot be prosecuted for actions that were taken in an official capacity under the Supreme Court's presidential immunity decision. Mr. Skandalakis may have concluded that in order for this case to move forward, it would have to wait for Donald Trump, at least as against Donald Trump, it would have to wait for him to leave office. On the other hand, if it proceeded against other defendants while he is sort of immune from prosecution, then the question becomes, is that fair to him in absentia as a defendant who is ineligible to be tried, to have these decisions made without him in ways that could color a future jury pool, for example, or even color future judges ruling on things like evidentiary matters. So I think that the finality aspect of it was important to Mr. Skandalakis. I have not been able to go through this in exhaustive detail, but trust me, I will today.
If you notice, she said, well, let me tell you what I think he means. And all of that crap she just said was her interpretation. At the end of the day, what the man actually said, what happened of it, was that when they did this, remember this picture? This was from Fulton County, Fani Willis. That's how we got that picture. That was her that brought that Trump now hangs up inside of the White House. And here's the actual notification from the judge. It says, comes now the state by and through Peter J. Skandalakis, district attorney pro tempore. And after a thorough examination of the case file, consideration of applicable statutory and case law, and prior to submission to a jury, the state hereby moves for entry of a nolle prosequi for the following reason: to serve the interests of justice and promote judicial finality. For all remaining defendants, this disposition meets the criteria for the Georgia Crime Information Center to restrict access to the criminal history for this arrest pursuant, which means that all of this gets wiped off their slate. Even though they went through years of having to get attorneys and spend money for it to be dismissed, it never should have even been brought. And they know that. And see, what the Democrats have been doing, they've been pushing this notion that, oh, there's a civil war in MAGA and MAGA split. No, it is not. Just yesterday, on Tuesday, they did a report and they had to give it up. My man on CNN, NTN or whatever his name is, President Trump is at an 87% approval rating with the MAGA base. 6 months ago, it was at 87%. He has not dropped support at all. And CNN usually underreport President Trump's numbers. So it might be as high as 91 or 92%. And then on foreign policy, they love to have their Obama. President Trump is crushing Obama when it comes to President Trump's foreign policy approval. He's at 43%. Obama was only at 37. Bush was at 36. So when they're saying MAGA falling apart and people feeling off, they only say that so people like you and I would hear that and say, oh my God, and lose faith in it, as if we're going to jump ship and go to the Democrats. And I've said this before, anybody that can say that they're willing to go and support Democrat causes after President Trump being in office only 10 months, they were never MAGA to begin with. Now, let's check out this CNN report on what's going on, and then we're going to follow it up. I had to go through another left propagandist because, again, they can't spin this. And on this one, they're even more revealing. And I loved how they keep trying to hide behind this whole presidential immunity, which didn't even come down till within the last few months. The fact of the matter is the case was weak because you and I both know when Mr. Skandalakis took it over, there's another Democrat left-wing radical that would have loved to make their claim to fame by sticking it to Trump. But when they looked at this and said, oh, my goodness, and the fact that Fani Willis and Nathan Wade were meeting with the White House, literally meeting with Kamala Harris prior to even bringing these charges, means that there's something nefarious that was going on. They were meeting with the January the 6th committee prior to bringing these charges. And then, coincidentally, all the evidence of the January 6th committee just comes up missing. They don't have it anymore. And then Fani Willis has been stonewalling the Supreme Court and Justice who has subpoenaed the information, call logs, travel records in detail. She refuses to give it up. But now I don't believe she has a choice. She either has to give it up or she may be facing contempt of court. But check out what CNN has to say.
This is CNN Breaking News.
We are following breaking news just into CNN. A Georgia prosecutor officially dropped the historic racketeering case against President Trump and others for attempting to overturn the 2020 presidential election. I want to go right to CNN's Kara Scannell. What are you learning, Kara?
Good morning, Pam. Yeah, this new filing in from the prosecutor who had taken the place to look into the Fulton County investigation of Donald Trump and others has filed a motion with the court saying that they are not going to move forward with the case. They're dropping the charges. What he filed what's known as a nolle pros, and that means that in theory, because if the statute of limitations hasn't run out, a case could be refiled. But he attached to his filing about a 20-page statement explaining his rationales for why he did not think that they should move forward with this case. You'll remember this was the case that began with Donald Trump making a call to the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, urging him to find the votes. And then District Attorney Fani Willis brought this historic investigation and filed those racketeering charges against Donald Trump and dozens of others for interfering with the 2020 election. She was then disqualified from the case because of an undisclosed romantic relationship with another prosecutor. And that is how this case now fell into the hands earlier this month of a prosecutor who was assigned the job of trying to find someone to take on this case. He said that he couldn't because there were too many conflicts and he took it on himself. Now we're seeing the results of that. And that is that he is saying that they are not going to move forward with this case. And he summarized it in part by saying that he made this decision by examining the case file, examining what the jury had been presented, and also considerations of the law. He says that, contesting an election is not unlawful, but and that is part of the reasons for why he decided not to move forward with the charges at this point. But again, this is a nolle pros filing, meaning that they're dropping the case right now. In theory, it could be revived if the statute of limitations doesn't run out. But of course, Donald Trump is still in office for another 3 years. Pam, this is the last of the criminal prosecutions that have been hanging over Donald Trump as he entered the White House. The only conviction that he faced out of the 4 indictments was the one in New York for the hush money payments. And that one he is appealing. Pam?
All right.
They did a 4-corner press on President Trump, and he beat them all like Rocky. And even that one case, the freaking hush money case, is weak. And man, when you see that one, he gave the jury 3 different options to decide. They didn't have to be uniform. He didn't give them clear instructions. They didn't allow President Trump and his defense team to bring in any witnesses and any evidence. He was kicking it all out, letting the prosecute. Then they put a gag order on President Trump and not on everybody else. Then we find out that Judge Marchand's daughter was like a big fundraiser for Adam Schiff. She raised millions of dollars for the Biden administration and for Adam Schiff. And this was Juan Marchand's daughter. That was in that hush money case. It's insane. But so I believe he's going to win that one on appeal. Now let's check out what Newsmax has to say, because folks, this is a great day. My cat is going nuts over here. The fact of the matter is that they tried it. They utilized Lawfare to the fullest extent. But the one thing they didn't bank on is our resilience as Americans and our ability to be able to see through it and support President Trump. Our energy that we sent out, on top of the fact that he has some phenomenal lawyers, help make this what it is. And their Trump derangement caused them to break the law and do things that was so unethical that when anybody that wasn't in on the plan or the scheme looks at it, they're afraid to be anywhere near it. Matter of fact, they rather dismiss it than to even try to push it and pursue it, because it's like a jigsaw puzzle with all the wrong pieces. And you're trying to make it fit, but they knew what wrong pieces they were trying to make it fit and make it seem like it was this cohesive thing. Anybody else stepping in, now that Kamala's gone, Biden is gone, she's removed from her position of authority over the case, it looked like crap. And again, he wanted to get as far away from it as he possibly could. Now let's check out this Newsmax clips. Check this out.
For more on this breaking story, we're going to head out to Washington, where White House correspondent Mike Carter is standing by. Mike.
Yeah, good afternoon. Big day here at the White House, even with President Trump taking some Thanksgiving holiday time down in Florida. A Georgia judge today officially dismissing the historic racketeering charges against President Trump and others for trying to overturn the 2020 election results in Georgia. At least that's what he was accused of. Of course, this investigation began shortly after a January 2021 phone call became public in which Trump had asked Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger of Georgia to find the votes necessary for him to win Georgia in the 2020 election. Racketeering charges were filed in August of 2023 by Fulton County DA Fani Willis, who of course launched a lengthy investigation into President Trump's alleged interference in the election, resulting in maybe one of the most famous, if not the most famous, mugshot of all time when Trump was officially charged in the Georgia case. Willis, of course, was eventually forced to drop the case after questions were raised about her authority to pursue charges and regarding a romantic relationship with one of the lawyers on the case, the lead prosecutor, Nathan Wade. In a statement today, Georgia prosecutor Peter Skandalakis, who moved to dismiss the case in its entirety, writing, "Given the complexity of the legal issues at hand, ranging from constitutional questions and the supremacy clause to immunity, jurisdiction, venue, speedy trial concerns, and access to federal records, and even assuming each of these issues were resolved in the state's favor, bringing this case before a jury in 2029, 2030, or even 2031 would be nothing short of a remarkable feat." Well, today, Steve Sato, Trump's lead attorney in that case, giving a statement which reads, "The political persecution of President Trump by disqualified DA Fani Willis is finally over." We're still waiting to hear from President Trump. I'm sure we will on Truth Social later today regarding the dismissal of these Georgia charges. Back to you.
Steve Sato was a pit bull, and we did hear from President Trump. Here's what President Trump had to say. Breaking news. Law and justice have prevailed in the great state of Georgia as the corrupt Fani Willis witch hunt against me and other great American patriots has been dismissed in its entirety. This illegal, unconstitutional, and un-American hoax was perpetrated against our nation by Fani and her low IQ lover, Nathan Wade, at the direction of crooked Joe Biden and his handlers. This case should have never been brought in the first place. The radical and unethical district attorney illegally hired her boyfriend to prosecute the former president of the United States of America in a charade, even though he had never prosecuted such a case before, was completely inexperienced in RICO, and blatantly lied about everything, including their beautiful love affair. The ridiculously high amounts of money she paid him, unlawfully taking it from the honest taxpayers of Georgia, their record-setting numbers of Caribbean cruises, vacations, and getaways, her clear campaign finance violations, and most importantly, their obsession with doing anything and everything to get Trump, just as the Biden White House told them to do. The deranged Democrats did all they could to viciously attack me, my supporters, and our MAGA movement for telling the truth. The 2020 election was rigged and stolen, and they committed crime after crime as they weaponized our law enforcement and justice system against honest and loving Americans. But we have fought back and won, both in the courts and politically, with our historic, country-saving landslide victory of November the 5th, 2024. We have to hold responsible those who attempted to destroy our legal system and nation itself as they tried to use it to silence and imprison political opponents for protecting our country and exercising our First Amendment rights. The few remaining Democrat witch hunts will soon meet the same embarrassing end. We are going to keep winning and continue to make America great again. Man, the W is getting full, eating all of these W's. So I wanted to bring you that great news. let you know what's going on. I just heard about a situation that took place at the White House with 2 National Guards potentially being pow. So I'm gonna check on that and I'm gonna get back at you. If it turns out to be true, you can expect a video on that. But other than that, tell me what you thought about this Fani Willis case being dismissed, done, all of those cases, because I knew that was hanging in the wind. And I know the president, and I believe Democrats were sitting back quiet about it because they were trying to let it just ride out. Then Trump get out of office and they try to hit him with that. Done deal, over, finito. So if you've watched the video up to this point, I want to thank you from the top and bottom of my heart, sincerely. If you haven't already, hit that like button. And if you aren't subscribed, subscribe. Most importantly, make sure that you stay safe and you be great. I'm Brian Maxwell saying I look forward to seeing you at the top. Over and out, y'all.